welcome to Latin Week! This is a bit of a misnomer. Not the Latin. There will be Latin, but the week part, because it's not going to be like an episode a day for a week. It will go on for heaven only knows how long, with, 2 episodes a week or so. But I thought it was time to make Ramblings with Rebecca slightly less rambling and random and give it some kind of theme. So here we go. We're going to do random phrases that I'm encountering in Latin. Okay, not quite random. Most of them will be legal. Probably all of them will be legally charged, and things that I'm encountering for the most part in class. But if there's a Latin phrase that you would like to hear me ramble on about, shoot it my way and I will do it. We're going to start with mens rea. Mens rea, M-E-N-S space R-E-A, mens rea. This is something that I do not deal with very much in class. Stolen this one from Legally Blonde. Disclaimer, I did not go to law school because of Legally Blonde, the film, or the musical, or anything else. I would just like to put that out there. Legally Blonde, nothing to do with current student status. That being said, it's a fun movie and everyone should go watch it because Reese Witherspoon's delightful. However, so mens rea, I think probably if people are aware of a Latin phrase having to do with law, this is very likely it. It makes a lot of appearance in pop movies and television shows around crime and lawyers and blah, blah, blah. Also, it is a criminal law and like an individual level term, more than the international stuff that I'm dealing with for the most part. So mens rea, Latin for guilty mind. In criminal law, it is a necessary element for many crimes to have the intention to have performed the act. So in order to prosecute, to charge someone for a crime and get them to pay up in jail time, fines, whatever, there has to be not just a guilty act, actus reus, look at that, 2 Latin phrases in one episode, but also the guilty intention, the mens rea piece. So someone who acts unaware of what they're doing, or that what they're doing is illegal, or that what they're doing is going to cause harm, or whatever, generally speaking, is not at fault for that, or considered liable and thus responsible for paying damages in whatever form. So children, people who are mentally ill or disabled, folks who are under some kind of prescribed drug that, is influencing their brain status, someone who acts as a middleman without doing anything actually wrong or unaware of what's happening around, that kind of thing. So if you can prove that you were acting without knowledge of what you were doing, or without knowledge that what you were doing was problematic in some way, for the most part, you won't be charged. There are certain crimes, really egregious crimes, or particularly tricky ones or whatever, that have strict liability. So regardless of whether or not you have this mens rea, this guilty mind, you can be held liable for it and made to pay for it. This strict liability actually started in the 19th century in order to enforce factory working conditions. It was really, really tricky to prove whether or not factory owners were intentionally trying to cause damage, bad conditions, hurt workers' health, yada, yada, yada. But obviously, there needed to be a way to enforce safe conditions and ensure that the workers, had access to healthcare and that kind of thing. So in order to get around this whole, we can't really prove whether or not you're trying to hurt them, they kind of just nilled mens rea and said there are certain things which you're strictly liable for. So regardless of whether or not the factory owners were intending to harm, it was their factory, therefore they were strictly liable, required to pay up for whatever problems the factory caused in the workers, more or less. Obviously, there were certain things they were and were then responsible for in the actual owning of the factory. But the idea is that there are some things for which the person who owns or is operating or whatever, if there's a problem, if there's an accident, whatever, it's on you. And you need to deal with that. And then with, particularly tough crimes, kind of regardless, something's really horrific, there's more likely to be strict liability. So mens rea is something I don't deal with much in international law because I don't do criminal law. There is certainly international criminal law, in which case mens rea is a part of, although often those are really, really egregious crimes and there may be strict liability. There may not be, depending. But for the most part, I don't really look at intentionality so much as other things that states actually have that we will get to.